Romania has some of the most fascinating mythological creatures in the world. Some are terrifying while others are just plain confusing. So, if you're tired of Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, let's dive into some 100% local legends. Spoiler alert. After this video you might think twice before walking through the woods alone. If you thought Dracula was the biggest bogeyman in Romanian folklore, you've been tricked by Hollywood. The real monsters of the night are the Strigoi. And trust me, they are way more hardcore than any vampire with a night job. The legend says that Strigoi are the souls of those who have died but aren't quite ready to leave the world behind. Maybe because they had bills to pay, or maybe because there was an enemy they just couldn't stand even after death. What's certain is that instead of resting peacefully in their graves, they rise at night and return to the world in various forms, shadows, ghosts, or even as normal-looking people who are just a little too pale. But don't think that simply dying turns you into a Strigoi. Oh no! There's a whole list of criteria, such as being born with a deformity, not being baptized, being a bad person, or, hold on, if you were the 7th child of the same sex in a family. Yes, you heard that right, so if you have 6 older brothers, maybe it's time to have a serious talk with your parents. How do you know if there's a Strigoi nearby? Simple unexplained misfortunes. People losing weight for no reason. No, not because of diets. Animals dying suddenly. Cow's milk turning sour instantly. And, of course, the feeling that something is watching you in the middle of the night. And now, the really interesting part, how do you get rid of a Strigoi? Well, no simple unfollow will work. There's a complex ritual including exhuming the corpse, driving a stake through the heart, preferably made of oak or ash wood, throwing salt over the grave and, for extra safety, burning the remains completely. If all this seems extreme to you, you should know that such practices were reported in Romania as recently as 2004. In a village in Oltenia, a family dug up a corpse they believed to be a Strigoi, removed its heart, don't ask me how it was still there, and burned it. Yes, the 21st century, and yet these traditions are still being followed. So if you've ever felt drained of energy in the morning, don't blame it only on lack of sleep. Maybe there's a Strigoi lurking around. If you grew up with stories about evil witches, chances are Muma Pădurii inspired many of them. She's the terrifying old woman who lives in the woods in a rundown hut and sticks her nose in the affairs of mortals. Imagine an angry grandmother with superpowers and absolutely no mercy. Muma Pădurii isn't just any old witch, she's one of the most feared creatures in Romanian folklore. She has the power to take on various forms, from a bent old woman with spiderweb white hair, to a grotesque creature with long claws and glowing eyes. It doesn't matter what she looks like, the point is, if you see her, you've got 2 choices. Run as fast as you can, or accept that it's your last walk through the woods. The legend says Muma Pădurii is an evil spirit that lives in the darkest and most untouched parts of the forest. She feeds on people's fear, and especially enjoys scaring children who get lost among the trees. Basically, she's more effective than any GPS. If you've heard her, you definitely don't want to stray off the path. But don't think only children are at risk. Muma Pădurii punishes adults who don't respect nature. If you cut down a tree without permission or disturb the peace of the forest, you might start noticing some strange occurrences, shadows moving on their own, weird whispers in your ears, and the feeling that something's following you. And if you're unlucky enough to really anger her, it's said she can steal your soul or turn you into a tree. Yes, you heard that right. Maybe that's why some forests are so dense. The only solution to get rid of Muma Pădurii? Either apologize or find a way to trick her. In some legends, those who manage to flatter her ego or offer her a suitable gift escape unharmed. Maybe she should consider a career in politics. Looking at the current situation, it seems like she's been well bribed. So, if you venture into the woods and feel like you're not alone, maybe it's a good idea to carry an offering. A pretzel, some incense, or, who knows, maybe even a Netflix tablet. Maybe Muma Pădurii wants to see what's new. So, the next time you go on a hike, remember one thing, the forest has eyes. And if you hear a suspicious rustle, maybe it's just the wind. Or maybe someone's watching you from the shadows. When you think of dragons, you probably picture the friendly Mushu from Mulan or Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. Well, forget everything you knew. The Balaur from Romanian mythology is neither friendly nor nice, and it's definitely not the type of creature to be tamed by a teenager with a cool haircut. Romanian Balaur are much closer to the idea of mythical beasts meant to destroy villages, kidnap princesses, and make life difficult for the heroes of fairy tales. They usually have multiple heads, anywhere from 3 to 7 or even 12, depending on the budget of the story. Each head can spit fire and venom, and the legend says that if you cut one off, others grow in its place. Basically, they're the ultimate boss fight in Romanian folklore. Unlike Western dragons, who can sometimes be noble or wise, Romanian Balaur are almost always malevolent. They're described as being huge, scaly, with massive wings and long tails, capable of causing disasters wherever they go. And if that wasn't enough, some Balaur even have magical powers. They can control the weather, hypnotize people, or fly at incredible speeds. Basically, they're the perfect mix between Godzilla and a heavyweight magician. But of course, every monster needs a hero. In Romanian tales, Balaur are always confronted by Fat Frumos, the champion of justice and impeccable haircuts. Armed with a magic sword and plenty of courage, the hero must go through tough trials to reach the final battle with the beast. Spoiler alert, the Balaur rarely wins, but let's be honest, if it were invincible, we wouldn't have fairy tales anymore, just horror stories. However, there are also theories suggesting that Balaur weren't necessarily evil, but rather ancient creatures feared by humans for their power. Some even believe that stories about Balaur might be linked to dinosaur fossils discovered over time. That could explain why these giant monsters appear in mythologies around the world. So, the next time you watch a movie with friendly dragons, remember that in Romanian mythology things aren't quite like that. Romanian Balaur aren't to be tamed, they're to be confronted. If you thought meteorologists were the coolest because they can predict the weather, it means you haven't heard of Solomonars. These mysterious wizards from Romanian folklore don't just predict the weather, they control it. So if you've ever complained that it's raining exactly when you planned an outing, you might have pissed off a Solomonar without even knowing it. Solomonars are considered initiates of ancient, lost, magical knowledge. It's said they live in isolation, usually in caves or mountains, where they study the art of witchcraft and mastering the elements. They spend years learning from magical books, and when they're ready, they can summon storms, calm droughts, or even send hail over entire villages. Basically, they're like a weather app, but much more personalized and vengeful. Legend has it that Solomonars travel through villages disguised as beggars, testing the kindness of people. If they're treated with respect, they leave the crops alone and may even bring blessed rain, but if they're chased off or mocked, well, you can bet on some extreme weather phenomena coming your way. And what's worse, their hail isn't just any hail. It's said they create it from a secret lake filled with enchanted water and send it upon those who have disrespected them. It's also said that each Solomonar has a dragon or a Balaur, dragon-like creature, they use to travel through the clouds and bring storms. These mythical creatures are bound to the wizard by a magical pact, and together, they can cause natural disasters or stop storms with a simple gesture. So if you've ever dreamed of having a dragon like in Game of Thrones, the Solomonars thought of that first. There are also stories about how one can become a Solomonar, but the process is far from easy. Legend says only those chosen by fate become initiates, taken to hidden schools in the mountains, where they undergo extremely tough magical training. If they survive, they become masters of the weather. If not, well, let's just say, not all graduates get their diploma. So the next time you see the sky suddenly darken, it might not just be a change in atmospheric pressure, it could be a Solomonar deciding you need a little chill. When you think of fairies, you probably imagine delicate beings dressed in ethereal gowns floating gracefully through the forest. Well, the Iele are fairies too, just with less Disney and more Romanian folklore horror. The Iele are supernatural creatures in Romanian mythology, known for their hypnotic beauty and dangerous temper. It's said they appear at night, dancing in mysterious circles of light, on meadows, pastures, or the edges of forests. Their dance isn't just an artistic display, it's a magical ritual with serious consequences for anyone who dares to watch. If a mortal gazes at the Iele's dance without permission, their luck runs out, they'll go blind, go mad, or be paralyzed. In some versions of the legend, their victims are left mute or even disappear without a trace. Essentially, the Iele are the mythological equivalent of don't stare too long or else, except the consequences are much more severe than a friendly warning. But it's not just watching that's dangerous. It's said that the places where the Iele have danced remain scorched or marked with rings of grass, and those who pass through them suddenly fall ill. In the past, people believed only witches or priests could lift the curses left by the Iele, through complicated rituals involving holy water, incantations and magical herbs. But who are the Iele really? Some say they are the souls of women who died prematurely, while others believe they serve higher forces, possibly even the moon itself. What's certain is that no one wants to anger them. If treated with respect and given offerings, such as flowers, milk or honey, they can be lenient. If not, let's just say you wouldn't want to be the one who insulted them. So if you're walking through the forest at night and see mysterious lights or hear ethereal laughter on the wind, it might be best to pretend you didn't see anything and head in the opposite direction. In other words, don't be the hero of the story. In tales about the Iele, curiosity is definitely not a virtue. These were just a few of the creatures that haunt Romanian mythology. So, if you're looking for authentic horror, you don't need movies. Just a walk through a Romanian forest at night. But be careful where you step, because you never know if you've wandered into a circle of Iele, or disturbed the sleep of an angry Strigoi. Whether we're talking about Muma Pădurii, Solomonars, dragons or Iele, Romanian mythology is full of fascinating creatures, sometimes terrifying, other times simply misunderstood. So the next time you hear a rustle behind you, it might not just be the wind. Or maybe it's just your imagination. Who knows? Give a like if you don't want to be haunted by a Strigoi, and until next time, stay curious.